Dora Siliya, PhD. That's what it is now. First of all, have we ever had a conversation where we've talked about this and I've said congratulations? I probably have off camera, but not on camera, yeah?
Definitely not on camera, and I earned it. I earned it, and I proudly use those 3 letters, PhD, Dr. Dora Siliya.
But that name, Dora Siliya, brings a lot of memory and a lot of conversation also. Because I remember back in the day, one time, my mom, I think you were serving as minister, so my mom just said those words. She said, Dora Siliya. And then she said in Nyanja, she was talking to my sister, and she was saying, Kwankariche munga Dora Siliya. That's what she said. Minister. But that's where I want us to start from. You had about 15 years in Parliament. That is quite a long time. How was this 15 years?
As I sit here, I look back with such pride, because when I got into politics in 2001, it was to be a member of Parliament. I was very clear in my mind that I could help the people of Petauke. In fact, initially, I'd wanted to run in Lusaka, and it is the business community in Petauke that said I should run in Petauke. I had never been to Petauke before until 2001. And so when I went there, I was just shocked. I mean, you can imagine I'm almost 30, and yet I'm still shocked that people live in grass thatched houses. And I thought, this is where my parents come from? And I remember calling my mother, and we had landlines then, but I remember calling my mother and asking her, why didn't you help the place where you came from? And that is how I transitioned my thoughts from wanting to run in Lusaka to go and run in Petauke. I was the first female to run in Petauke and win. I was the first MP to be elected more than twice. And for me, that is a great achievement. I talk about it with such pride. But I was also able to really use my position, my education, my experience to support the people, to help the people. And this is what I hope will continue, because members of Parliament are there for a time, and you can only do what you can. And I hope that in my engagement, my association with Petauke Central in almost 20 years, that one of the things I really did, and that when I look back, I remember all the time, many fathers would say to me, we want a school because I want my daughter to be like you, Dora Siliya. They would say it exactly like that, the full name. I want my daughter to be like you, Dora Siliya. So in spite of all the infrastructure that I helped to build, whether it is boreholes, it is schools, it's tarred roads, it's clinics, for me, my greatest pride was mindset change. People beginning to believe that it was possible. It was possible to get out of poverty, put a premium on education, and that your life can be like Dora Siliya, it can be better.
But this 15 years is a positive side. You look at it from a positive side, but there's a lot of people who also don't look at it positively. They say, you've stayed too long, that there's so many other people that can do this. Why you? And even when we talk about this 15 years, you wanted longer because you contested in the election in 2021. Do you also not listen to these people that think that it's such a long time for you to keep going back and back and back and back to be a member of Parliament?
Democracy is fantastic. I mean, I'm such a Democrat at heart. When I ran the first time, I lost. Imagine if I'd just given up. Imagine if I'd just given up. And I think that the people of Petauke will be the first ones to tell you how well we worked together. And thereafter that they elected me 4 times. And then again, after that, I lost. I mean, I am happy with that. I am very, very happy with that. Because you go in an election expecting to win or to lose. I went in the first time, I lost. I went in thereafter, won 3 elections, 1 by-elections, and then after that, lost. And I am so proud of myself. I am so happy. And I am glad that I am such a Democrat at heart, and I always believe that you have to give the people your best plans, but they have the right to decide whom they would like to work with at any particular time. I always say democracy is so good, it gives us what we deserve. And you must participate in elections understanding the rules and the game. And I understand that you go in an election, you can win or you can lose. So I am very happy with myself.
I find that very interesting because, you know, when you've been serving as a member of parliament for such a long time, I know you say that you expect either one of the two outcomes, but you probably expect winning more than losing, isn't it?
I probably expected to win right away in 2001. I think losing was a bit of a shock in 2001. I expected to win in 2006. I expected to win in 2011. I expected to win in 2015. I expected to lose in 2021.
Really?
Yes.
You expected to win in your first
yes. The first one I lost in 2001.
But you expected to lose in 2021?
Yes.
Tell me why.
Well, there were just a lot of things at play. There were a lot of political machinations at play within my own party at that time, the PF. There were a lot of, I think, maybe, like you rightly say, maybe even a certain fatigue in the people that maybe we need to try somebody else. So I went in that election knowing that there were these issues at play, and that I felt more strongly that I would probably lose than win. The win would have surprised me. And like in 2001, where the loss actually surprised me.
So did you go, would you say you didn't go in full fight?
I gave it everything. Oh, no. Every single election in Petauke, I gave everything. It's the way I also did every job in every ministry, or even when I worked in development work with the EU, or even when I worked at ZNBC while a student at university. My work ethic is give it everything. Because even when I walked away, I feel no regret. I feel that I gave it everything. So I gave it everything in 2021. I gave it everything every time before that. I even gave it everything my very first time in 2001 when I actually lost. So I feel absolutely no regret. In fact, they'll tell you that after we lost in 2021, we had a big party because I had prepared all my people that this might be the likely event. So let's just have a good time. And we had a very big party.
You told them, you said, team, the likelihood is that we might lose.
Yes. I told them the likelihood is that we might lose. And not just me, that we might even lose the national election. But for now, let's focus on this constituency. We'll do our best, but the likelihood is that we might lose. And they'll tell you, after we lost, we had a big party. Because I was the leader. I had to prepare my people. Some took it very, very badly. But I told them, look, this is life. And we move on. And as I've always said to my team in Petauke, some of them I've worked with them for 20 years. And I'd always tell them what's important is investment in your own children. These are politics. But when it is over, the election is over, everybody is going to their own home. And it is at your house you will find your own children. And they'll be looking at you. Dad, where's the food? Mom, where is the food? So I always advised the people I worked with, the cadres, so to speak, and any colleagues, that whatever we are doing, start thinking always about building houses, about investing in your children, about getting in a business. I'm very proud that anybody who has associated with me in the last 20 years, no matter how small their station was in the scheme of things, the politics, the party, all of them in Petauke, I think, unless they were just lazy, they all were encouraged to build a house, to send their children to school, to get their children into jobs. If they are very bright children, we managed to send them out of the country on some of the scholarships, whether through government or through my hometown. We sent students to the university, especially girls, to the Copperbelt University, working with then our chairman from my hometown, Dr. Jacob Mwanza. We sent children on scholarships to Algeria, Morocco, who were doing very well in school. Just ordinary people, residents of Petauke. So I always tell them, everything we are doing, the first government begins at your home. It's in your home where your children will learn the values of hard work. Let's do this politics, but remember that the influence where it should be felt, it is at home level. It's where children must be able to go to school, must have access to enough food, must have access to hospitals, must be able to see a future that after this, life will be better for them than it is for you. And I think for many of them, that is what happened.
When a loss like that happens, a lot of people think that's the end. And it's a bit different from how you look at things, because I've had a conversation with you and you say, it's a career. Politics is a career. And you were telling me about how you would like to see a Jonah at 60 who's still a strong journalist. What then does that look like? Does this mean that you are continuing on this political journey, and how are you doing so?
The idea that people would like to think of me as one-dimensional, I think, or even most women, I think it is wrong. I am Dora Siliya, this daughter of somebody, this mother of someone, this grandmother of somebody, this trainee lecturer now, this business-minded person. I love sport, but I'm also Dora Siliya, the politician. And I am happy that I can do all these things, pursue academics, pursue business, pursue family issues, pursue politics. I can do all these things at the same time. And maybe I am lucky that I've been equipped with the tools, with experience, with education, with chance. And I always tell young people that, you know, chance favors the prepared. When I look back now, and being at university and being at ZNBC, I don't think I appreciated then the confidence it was giving me to be able to pursue the things I'm pursuing today, to give me the capacity to dream big, to give me maybe an edge over my colleagues, my friends in the same generation, because I'd already created some sort of name recognition. So this is why I'm always saying chance favors the prepared. So I'm not unidimensional. I'll always be a politician. I'll always be a communicator, broadcaster. Now I'll always be an author. I'm so excited. I'm looking, I need to write, whether it's an academic book or it's a fictional book, but I would like to write. And I will always be a politician. Just like people forget, between 2011 and 2013, I took a 3 years sabbatical from politics, and it was deliberate. It was deliberate. I think the first time I ever came out on political issues again was probably sometime in September 2013. So again, it was deliberate. That time I was not even studying, but I just felt that for my own well-being, for my own health, for my own happiness, I just needed to take a step away, spend more time with my family. My son was going to university to England at that point, and it was just 3 years of just enjoying myself, enjoying my life. Just like in 2019, I made a decision that I was going to pursue my PhD, because I promised myself that I was going to do it before I was 35. Unfortunately, or fortunately, at 35, 36, I became a minister, and this sort of derailed my, my plans. But I always told myself I was going to do it. And so in 2019, I told myself in the next 5, 6 years, I should do this PhD, I should have the book, I should start lecturing at a university, I should see if I can maybe start another business. So I like to write my plans down, my 5-year plans down. I like to write them and then work towards them. And I have a great work ethic. Once I decide I'm going to do something, I am going to commit to it. You know, just like this year, I've decided I'm going to get back into the gym seriously, because I haven't been into the gym for a long time.
But you carry your political career with so much pride, but there's some people also that kind of attach scandal to politics because of the nature, especially of African politics, but also in your experience as well. You transitioned from one political party to another as Member of Parliament, serving in 2 different governments. Does this, this in itself, in fact, I should make a statement before I ask a question. This in itself comes with a lot of controversy, moving from one political party to another. How much of this weighed on you that people attached that to a lack of loyalty. You move from one political party to the next and work with this government and speak for them when you previously spoke against them.
In fact, when you say the government, that is what gives me such comfort, because the government is the people. There are political parties with agendas, clubs, groupings of people. There are political parties with agendas. But my mind is always very clear that I am serving the people of Zambia. And this constituency doesn't change. It doesn't matter whether you are Paka, Red, Dika, Black, Kawat. I'm serving the people of Zambia. And the government must always be about the people. It is why when I was in MMD as Minister of Education 2009 to 2011, and then I was appointed also the party spokesperson. At one point I felt that that was a bit difficult for me, because I was the education minister, probably the biggest ministry in the country. And when you're talking education issues, you're talking across party lines, you're talking to Zambians, citizens. This is government of the people, for the people, by the people. When you speak for a party, there are narrow interests, because that is a smaller club. People who get a party into government are beyond even members of that political party. So I felt that that was a bit difficult for me. It is why when I was appointed Minister of Information in 2018 under PF and made the government spokesperson, I had no problems with that, because I said, I'm a minister, I'm only speaking about government policy on behalf of the people. Some people misunderstood, and they said, we never hear you start a statement by saying the government, the PF government. I said, because I'm not talking about narrow interest of the PF as a political party. I am talking about government for the people of Zambia, recognized nationally, regionally, and internationally, that when government says this is the position, everybody, nationally, regionally, and internationally, knows that that is the government of the people of Zambia, beyond the interest of a political party. So I think that this is why I feel I don't feel strongly about saying that one can't move from one government to another. I think that the interests that we serve are the same. It is about the people of Zambia. These are the people of Zambia right now, Jonah, who are very concerned about the tension in the country. There is a certain feeling of tension in this country, that something is happening. There's so much hatred. There's this group versus this group. And I believe that, especially that recently the president was at Parliament and talking about national values, I think the first thing to do is to lead by example. We need to see a reconciliation of political leadership in this country. The president in State House now and the former president. I think they need to lead by example. This atmosphere that there is such hatred, enmity, I've never seen it this bad in my whole life. We saw reconciliation between President late Mwanawasa and President Sata. We saw it between President Kaunda and President Chilula, because they all understood that it is important for the people of Zambia. That symbolic reconciliation to show that politics is about the people and it is not about two individuals, a president and a former president. I think it is very, very important. One of the other things that really concerns me is access to food security and affordable food security. And like many Zambians, I was disappointed when I saw that the executive side of Parliament walked out instead of discussing the issues around the cost of living. Look, there are many explanations that can be provided, but we send people to Parliament, and especially the side that forms government. That is where we have what I can equate to. Zambians understand this term. Parliament is like our Insaka. In Nsenga, we say Nsaka. Everybody, every corner of Zambia, every constituency, you are hoping to send your best brains there so that they can discuss and influence and you can get part of this cake. This is where we send people to say, go and ask these questions on our behalf. And on everybody's mouth now is the cost of living. But number one is the cost of food. While we can provide explanations, I think when the question is asked, why is the cost of living so high? We must expect a commensurate response, even if it's just to explain to us that this is where we've come from, this is where we are, but we are giving you hope that this is where we'll be in 5 months, in 6 months. I think that to walk away, for me, I agreed with the sentiments I saw from a lot of people of Zambia, that that was wrong, because when a question is asked, leadership must not run away. Leadership must go forward and stand with the people and lead from the front and answer the questions on behalf of the people.
Well, I'd like for us to get into detail into that, and because you've started that conversation, I guess we can just go right ahead. The economic situation in the country is very tough, and there are several attributes that government has argued is the reason. But do you think that the country, as a leader yourself and having served in government, do you believe that the country is, and the government is putting in place plans that could strongly strengthen Zambia's economic situation and get citizens out of this challenging time?
Jonah, this is what I know. When MMD left government in 2011, there was almost 6% growth. There was single-digit inflation. I think there was over $2 billion in terms of reserves. We had just come from an IMF engagement. We had just come from a world economic crisis, 2007, 2008. But we were getting back onto our feet, and the copper pricing, the demand in the world was beginning to increase, and copper prices, I think they went as high as $10,000 per ton. So there was clear evidence that organic growth could be sustained. Clearly, after the change of government, there was disruption. While the minister then was very conservative, Minister Stumbeko, to say that it is important we live within our means, and let us continue to provide reserves so that we support the strength of the kwacha, and we begin to look at how our mining, our manufacturing, and our trade can organically grow to respond to the needs of the nation. In 2013-14, we saw that this idea was accelerated with the borrowing of the Eurobonds, that no, we need this money, over $3 billion, so that we quickly provide the infrastructure. Now, that was done. It is up to the Zambians to judge. Of course, we saw roads, we saw bridges, and various other infrastructure. But there were still underlying issues. You see, you can borrow money, you buy a nice car, you buy a nice house, and you start eating well. Your girlfriend, your wife, relatives, they start seeing liquidity. But if you are not working hard to be able to sustain that lifestyle with generation of new revenues, at one time that money will end. And that is what happened to us in this country. By 2018, 2019, we didn't have any more of that money. The borrowed money was finished. But activity, economic activity to sustain that level of growth, of development, was not there. And now we are here. Now, of course, you have to ask whether we must continue to say it is because of that administration or that administration. I think what is clear is that there was a certain failure on the part of the current government to be able to explain to the people that we made promises. But maybe once we've been in government for a year or so, maybe we need to go back to the people and say we underestimated some of the challenges we found, and not just financial challenges, even administrative challenges, system challenges, new people not knowing what is supposed to be done. This was done very clearly by Keir Starmer in the UK after he won. Immediately, 2-3 months later, he went back to the people and said, no, forgive us. I think we underestimated the challenges. This is what we need to do now. We need a new plan. So I think that if I can fault the current government, one of the problems has been lack of clear communication to the citizens. Because in terms of macroeconomics, trying to restructure the debt, That is the right thing to do. That is the right thing to do. We had a debt, it's not disappearing. The owners are saying, can we have the money? So you say, okay, I can't pay this money today. Maybe help me pay it at a later date. The owner will say, yes, but how do I guarantee you're going to pay me? Okay, we are going to stop wastage. We are going to do this. We are going to do this. We're going to remove subsidies and so on. And even in the middle of that engagement with IMF, I must congratulate the government. They were still able, something that doesn't usually happen, to get a commitment to continue to employ Zambian young people, especially in health and in education. That is very important, because otherwise we're going to have 5 years of a freeze on employment, and that would have been catastrophic for young people. I know it's not all young people who've managed to get a job in government, but at least that is a plus. Maybe we should have actually asked for more in terms of support to food pricing. I think that we should have tried also to negotiate to try and keep subsidies in terms of depressing the price of mealie meal. We should have tried to keep that also for the next 5 years, because there are in so many other areas that the citizens are suffering in terms of power supply, in terms of oil, in terms of just general expense, in terms of doing business in Zambia and so on. So I think that we could have also negotiated a little bit more for subsidies, especially towards mealie meal, so that we depress the price, because people are really struggling. And this is why I said to you, the government should have explained in Parliament, not outside, in the people's house, that this is where we are coming from. For somebody like me who was in government, Jonah, I know what it takes. I know the challenges. But I also know what can be done. And communication is at the center.
When you say all of this, and having been part of the previous government and observing what's going on in this current government, do you believe that the situation as it is today would have been better, or would have been as it is, or worse?
Look, I think that we should be beyond a blame game in this country. In fact, the idea of explaining every situation, whether it is by this government or the past government or even the MMD government at that time, that it was those who were there. It was those who were there. I think it is a wrong way of looking at things. Government is incremental. And this is why we need this reconciliation in the country. There is something to be gained in giving the citizens hope by seeing that former leaders and current leaders are all working towards addressing the same issues. Of course, there are things we'll disagree on. There are some critical issues of principle that people might say, no, on this we can't agree. But we must all agree that we have to address the price of food. We have to address a quick expansion of power generation in this country. That we need to find always cheaper sources of fuel, because that is what anchors a business. That we need to increase manufacturing, and we need to see massive investments in agriculture, not lip service, and that we cannot continue as a country to have civil servants sit in meetings and come up with reports. Like I was reading just a few days ago, a report of Ministry of Trade, and I think it was actually from 2018 to 2022, the strategy on increasing local content in Zambia. We cannot continue to say, here's a list of weaknesses. 1, lack of capacity. 2, institutional capacity. 3, there's no innovation. 4, there's no compliance. 60 years after independence, all these universities we have, Zambians have traveled the whole world over. They have experienced, they have engaged with different cultures. We cannot continue be saying that we have institutional weaknesses. Then we must do something about it. It means that those who have those positions as directors, as assistant directors, as PSs, they must be able to resolve those issues. Create the agility in government, systems that are agile enough to talk to each other, to get things to move quickly, to ensure that processes move quickly. Because if I'm sitting here, I'm a PS or I'm a director, and I'm saying there are institutional challenges, before we even get to writing that, we should be saying, this was what was the cog in the system, and we have removed it.
But if there is no comparative analysis, then how do you find an alternative? Because the only way that this UPND administration can be looked at differently, and if they can be looked at to have been doing differently, is if there is a comparative analysis with something else. That's why people make that comparative
and
analysis.
of course, it's people have the right to say, look, in terms of policy, the other administration wanted to do this. It's not working. We want to do this. But I think that this blame game, that nothing is working all the time because of a past administration, not just with UPND, but it was PF saying it was MMD. It was MMD saying it was UNIP. Yes, there are lessons we can learn, but we must also pick the good things. And we must also discuss, I think, the failures in a manner that we learn from them, you know, so that we make progress. And at the end of the day, it means also that we must not demonize everything that the previous governments did, or even the people who were there, because that's what creates the tension. And when we have tension, like in the last 4 years, it's almost a sense of continuous electioneering. We electioneer. My own PhD was a comparison of expenditure on agriculture, a very important sector where government itself says over 70% of Zambians earn from directly or indirectly. But if you see that this expenditure is actually impacted by electoral cycles, and in a normal circumstance, you'd expect that because so many people are in agriculture, the electoral cycle should impact agriculture positively, especially in the long term, because you believe that politicians would want to continue to win elections. But what I saw, my own findings, was that it was very cyclical. It was only given the support it needed during election times. After election, the drop is so severe that you can see that this is why agriculture has not developed. We need to have evidence-based decision-making. As Minister of Agriculture, I was always at pains to see, and everybody knows this, the political influence when we have to increase dramatically procurement, FRA, especially in years of elections, and support to fertilizer subsidies, usually the year before elections, because that is what my own research found. And this is why I decided to actually do an empirical study, that we need to have evidence. We need to make sure that sometimes the politicians make wrong decisions because the evidence is not there. So we need to have a cadre of researchers that provide evidence to government. In the US, the Boston universities, the Harvard universities, MIT universities, they are really the gardens for, you know, evidence for government to make decisions. We need to create that connectivity in this country between universities and government, so that when politicians, when members of parliament are looking through bills and trying to change a position, that there is evidence that supports them, and that it is not just emotion, because then we'll keep changing, going backwards, forward, because we are making emotional decisions.
When you look at the political landscape today, and historically, has there ever been a time when an alternative has been so uncertain in the history of this country? Or do you think that an alternative is uncertain at the moment in Zambia?
Let me say this. In a democracy, it should be the democratic push that can get things done. And sometimes that democratic push is very weak to get something done. And that has been our challenge, even with decentralization in this country. So when we send people to parliament, we are hoping that at a national level, we can observe leadership. Now, we have a tendency of so many politicians speaking outside without ever even having gone through parliament. And I think that the citizens have been a bit confused about who are the political leaders in this country. So we only look to those in government, because in terms of outside government, you really don't see this leadership in parliament. In the UK, in America, the people who are going to become the presidential candidates, you see them every day performing in parliament. You hear their views, you hear their policies. But we seem to be getting a system here where people think that they should never go to parliament, they should just go into a state house and become presidents. Of course, it happens everywhere. But I think that for better political management, I think political leaders must lead from the front. And the front is the people's house, and that is Parliament. And it means that we must encourage a cadre of intelligent people with good exposure, with good understanding of how public sector works, to be going to Parliament. Now, we also need to get our people in the country to understand why are they electing somebody to go to Parliament. It is true that many people vote because they were given exchange, and that is the only reason. It is true that there are many people who will vote because they were given some money, and that will be the only reason. They will not look at the quality of the person they are voting. They will not even have read the manifesto. I do not know how many media houses actually compare manifestos. I do not know how many NGOs actually compare manifestos. I do not know how many citizens go and vote based on the manifesto. I was reading a report about Germany and how it is so important. And we've seen actually globally now that in Western countries, people are voting based on the economy. What is it doing for me if I vote for you? What is the economy going to do for me? So we need to begin a lot of civic education among our people.
Do you think there's an alternative then at the moment?
I will get to that. That your vote is what will impact what's on your table in your house. Now, here we are. The election is in 2026, and yet for the last 4 years, all we have heard about is who is the opposition? Who is opposition? As I sit here, even for myself who's been in politics for a long time, I don't know. I keep hearing about alliances. Their names are changing every 6 months. I really don't know. And I've never seen it like this before, to be honest. I have really never seen it like this before. And maybe this is what freedom entails. We need to go through this process of just so many political parties until we get to a place where there's condensation, they'll be condensed, and we might get to 1 or 2 parties, because then we are getting the best leadership. As of now, to be honest, I really don't know, because there are so many. I have personally maybe been very busy to take a particular interest in all the political parties. As I sit here, Jonah, I don't belong to a political party at all. I left the PF in 2022. I've been enjoying being a free agent and looking around and seeing what is out there. And at the right time, if I'm interested, I'll make a statement. But for now, I think that the opposition has to serve the citizens better, because I think many will claim that what we are seeing has just been confusion, to be honest, and also a lot of tantrums in Parliament. I know that there is this feeling that when you go to Parliament, you must behave like this schoolboy and, just provide tantrums. When we are watching Parliament, we want to hear ideas. We want to know that what is so different from what so-and-so said. We want to hear ideas. You see, when the British Parliament began so many years ago, it was about language. How you are going to be able to convince somebody, to influence somebody to change their position so that they start thinking like you without fighting. That is why they were lords. So we've taken that tradition. But we must not believe that Parliament must be reduced to tantrums. When I was a member of Parliament the first time with Musa Mwanamwambwa, we're not even allowed to speak in any other language except in English. Now, one can argue, no, we're an African country, we've got our own values, of course.
And,
yes.
And somebody can argue that you had your own episode once in Parliament.
No, I'll get to that. But, you see, members of Parliament now and councillors have to travel world over to go and represent us. And I have been in meetings abroad where I'm really wondering that, did this country send their best forward to this meeting? So, and if you see the way the geopolitics have changed now, especially with President Trump, it's each man for themselves. we've seen the UK Prime Minister was in the US just now. And everybody in the country was concerned that when you go there, go and stand up for the country, go and speak well. It's the first time we are hearing a prime minister being told, when you go there, go and speak well. This is what you must say. Because the world has changed, the geopolitics are real, and we ourselves, Africans, must invest in leadership that is bold, that is courageous, that is going to speak for the people, that is going there to go and know, why are we attending this meeting? What are we taking back for our people? So I think this is what we expect to see, like I said to you, at Parliament. Parliament is where we should see the future leaders. We expect opposition presidents to be members of Parliament so that we see them, that this is what they are capable of. I had an incident in Parliament, you say. I've seen a lot of incidents in Parliament, but I do recall that under extreme provocation, you know, there's this idea in this country that bully women, you see? And I hope that as we commemorate this Women's Month this year, we can discuss misogyny honestly, because it is there in this country, and I talk about it all the time.
So you think that's what happened that time?
That is what happened that time. I felt that, especially after PF came into Parliament, for some reason they targeted me as their #1 enemy because of the many lies. Lies that, no, I was insulting President Sata. I'm still waiting for that video of where I insult President Sata. I can disagree with you and speak English and disagree with you strongly, but I will not call you names. I don't have to call you names, but I can say I've disagreed with you. As I am saying now, I'm giving you opinions on this, on that. I'm not insulting anybody. I'm just disagreeing with you. So there's a tendency among, and I think for me, usually it's less confident men, to want to belittle women, to want to bully women. And I've said this even in my book, that under a point of extreme provocation, there was one member of Parliament at that time from Kabwe in 2012 to whom I raised a finger. Something I've regretted, I've written about it publicly, but I do not believe that Parliament is a place for such behavior. And when we had Musa Mwanamwamba, as I was saying to you, he wanted us to speak so well so that we are so clear, so that citizens can truly understand what we are saying. So let me tell you how I became a cabinet minister. And every appointment actually surprised me. I was appointed deputy minister by Levi Mwanawasa in 2006 in the Ministry of Commerce and Trade. And at the end of 2007 in December, I was lucky I was working with Honorable Mutati as my minister, and he gave me leeway to say, look, you deal with issues at Parliament, I'll deal with issues on this level, and we divided the job. And I was answering a question one Friday morning. When I finished, and I was terrified of Musa Mwanamwamba, when I finished speaking that morning, he said to the House, if all of you would answer questions like the Honorable Deputy Minister of Commerce, Trade and Industry, Honorable Dora Siliya, I think that the Zambians would be very happy. That is a compliment that I have taken with such pride. It only took a month later, I was promoted as minister, or as cabinet minister in the Ministry of Commerce, Trade and Industry. So I just want to emphasize again here, it's my work ethic. It doesn't matter if it's one question, it's 10 questions, it's a speech, it's making a decision. I will give it all. I will give it everything. And this is why I believe that our political leadership in this country, we must not see it like we are sending people to Parliament or to government. They are doing them a favor. They must go there because they are competent. I keep seeing a debate on social media that education is not important. And I think it is very dangerous, especially when the world is becoming complicated with geopolitics, when the world is becoming complicated with international trade, when the world is becoming very closed and every country is saying our national interest. Negotiation is going to become key. And part of negotiation is that you must be well informed. You must speak the language well. You must have the confidence. You must be exposed. Because going into these rounds of the IMF or the World Bank or the UN or bilateral negotiations now are going to take a very different flavor and will just not be taking anybody there. So if anybody, a young person is sitting there and they're saying they want to be a member of parliament, I think it's important to invest in yourself. Invest in your skills. Invest in AI, artificial intelligence. Invest in understanding geopolitics. Invest in understanding basic economics so that when you are there to offer an opinion, you can influence people. We don't want our politics in this country to be only influenced by who insults the highest, the most, who ridicules other people the most. We don't want, if I don't agree with you, John, as a politician, then the important thing is for me to have a terrible headline in the paper. And again, now let me talk about the media. The media is not an island. When there was a genocide war in Rwanda, it didn't spare the media personnel. So sometimes I've seen in the last 20 years a culture where even the media, especially the tabloids, believe that sensationalism is definitely what will get them to sell. But the damage it has done to our country in terms of tolerance is big. And I don't know what the benefits for that in terms of social development as a country are. Because all we have done is dent the image of our country. I have friends from Zimbabwe and Kenya and South Africa who are always telling me, you Zambians and your politics, you are always insulting each other in the paper. It's because of these headlines. Of course, some might be justified. Others are totally out of context. Others are purposefully misunderstood. Others are just there because they want to sow division and hurt other people. We can't do our politics like that.
I'm coming to that as well, because I believe that the media is very critical. But while you say that, the media also have argued several times that they feel successive governments have been very harsh on them and they don't have much breathing space, they don't have much leverage. It's largely the newspapers that do that, and that's because regulation of the newspapers is very murky waters in that area. But broadcasting institutions feel they don't have enough breathing space and don't have enough leverage. You, for example, have received an extended criticism because under your watch as Minister of Information, a TV channel, Prime TV, was closed down. What doesn't that demonstrate, muzzling of the media and what makes them turn out to be what you've just described?
There are different levels here. Number one, when Prime TV was closed, it was not closed for professional practice. It was closed down for business poor practice. The law says pay certain fees. If you don't pay them, that is the law. So at no time was it closed down for professional media conduct in terms of journalistic practice. It was the business side of it that the top administration mismanaged because they just didn't bother to renew their license. So that must be made very clear.
But also, I mean, look, I get that.
You can argue that why not do them a favor? It's just like any other company that why not do them a favor? But I just wanted us to be very clear that it had nothing to do with journalistic practice. It was a business issue practice. Like I saw recently, the Ministry of Mines telling people, yes, you have a mine here, but you don't have a license. So get that done, and when you've got it right, you can come back. So those are business
Isn't that also one of the fundamental problems that we face in this country? Because government is going to say that, but if it is a big mine, for example, an international conglomerate, and they've done something that goes against the standard, they'll bring them to the table and they'll talk to them. Shouldn't government in that situation, in the interest of media advancement, shouldn't you have exercised as government wisdom to bring them to the table to avoid depriving people an alternative voice at that specific time in a private media institution. Shouldn't you have done that?
No, I think that there must be a level playing field, because there are so many other private media institutions. So in the eyes of government, not so much the eyes of me as Dora Siliya, but in the eyes of government, the citizens will not be denied anything because they still have access to a lot of other news channels. I think it's just important that we also begin to teach our people, not just in media, just like we are talking about mining here. And I am talking as an observer here because I don't work for government, that we need to get ourselves as our people to be also to be civically aware, conscious of what is required of us. Because even when we talk about getting Zambians to increase local content, one of the things that I remember Shoprite used to complain about when I was in Ministry of Agriculture or even in trade was that, look, the Zambians will do one thing today and do something else tomorrow. So we need also as a people, as we are fighting for the global cake, to be able to sort ourselves out and say, this will do well, these are administrative issues, we are going to pursue them so that government can meet us halfway on these issues. That is my personal opinion. It's not an opinion of government. But now that we're even talking about the mines, I think you're right in the sense that as a country, we want to see growth in many sectors. The biggest issue in the world now is, you know, sort of resource nationalism. We've seen in West Africa, they are saying, this is our oil, this is our gas. We've seen what gas has done to transform Tanzania. We've seen now with the American government making this deal with Ukraine that we are going to take over the minerals. We've seen the problems in Bukavu in Congo. It's all about natural resources. So there's a certain nationalism now among our people saying that, look, we want to benefit from our nationalism, from our resources. We can't have this wealth, but if you just move from your studios here just a few kilometers, you find floods, you're going to find people can't afford food, young people have no jobs, you find that agriculture is still not doing well, there's no irrigation, there's no power. So people keep asking. We've had mines forever. We've had government since 1964. How is it possible that we are not transferring this wealth from the mines into agriculture, into housing, decent housing? It's something we don't talk about in this country. But young people have such challenges in terms of housing, into making sure that we can produce enough for the country to bring down the food prices. So this nationalism, we're not going to avoid it. It's going to blow up and can become mass hysteria if we don't manage it. And I think this is the time now for bold, brave leadership, that we need to make decisions that really will benefit citizens. I think telling the citizens that there is still potential, I think that is not going to work for many African young people now, because this resource mobilization, resource nationalism is becoming a reality. And that's why I think there was the debate on the taxes by the minister on the gemstones. It is the same feelings of, okay, if you're saying we are going to forgo this, who is in the emerald mining in Zambia? Are we benefiting? Do you have any emerald pieces on you? So we need to address these issues, because Zambians are saying, these are our stones. So it looks good on paper. But when people think about it, they are saying, but who's buying this emerald? I can't even buy one. Who is benefiting? Who's in this business? Is it just a few people in New Kasama or in Kablonga or where? And that is what is creating these challenges. And we need communication to be at the center and hope, so that we tell the people, at least by this time, maybe we can all be able to afford an emerald piece of jewelry.
Hopefully. You've gone to the mining sector. I've not been satisfied with your response with regards to the broadcasting institution.
Yes.
And I want us to end on that note. When you reflect, when you served as minister, on that specific incident, you don't think that anything went wrong?
I don't. In fact, what I think is that we lost an opportunity for the communicators, journalists, to be respected in terms of having a professional body. Because when you have a professional body, and now we're not talking about the business of broadcasting, but in terms of practice of journalism, that I tried very hard working with the Journalism Council and also the marketers, the communicators, to make sure that we have professional bodies. Because when you have professional bodies, you set your own standards and everybody adheres to that practice. The marketers did that. We've known the big ones, the lawyers, the engineers, the doctors. But for journalists, We still haven't come to a point where we say, what are the standards? We want to say, we want access to information, yes, but even having access to information means that you must have people who are well trained on behalf of the people of Zambia so that they can get the information in its right context and ask the right questions. And we have a problem. And I think that this is what has brought ridicule on the profession, that it's just for those people. Like I said in my book, that when I was going to get a part-time job at ZNBC, my parents said, where? ZNBC, those people. Why? Because we don't think that they can be those CNN anchors, because we think it's where those people who have failed to do anything go, because we have not set the standards. I think we lost an opportunity because, again, there were interests that misunderstood that setting up a professional organization for your own profession is not the same thing as talking about access to information or media freedoms. I really think that was an opportunity lost, and I hope that it can be corrected so that many, many intelligent people, if there's a profession, there should be intelligent people. For me, it is in the media sector and in the political sector, because you are dealing with people issues every day. And once you miss the opportunity, once a politician makes a wrong decision, once a journalist malpractices, it can cause such repercussions that it's so difficult to recover from. So I think that's why I sleep peacefully. I did the best I can, but look, I'm not infallible, and others can judge me, but I know that at the bottom of my heart, when I was Minister of Trade, when I was Minister of Transport, Minister of Education, when I was Minister of Energy, Minister of Agriculture, and finally Minister of Information, I think that I gave it my all, and I sit here, as I reflected in my book, very honestly and very candidly, not to give you a nice story, but that I am a real person, and with real feelings, real life, and that I have lived, and this is how I have lived, and this is how I got here. But it takes hard work, and it takes commitment, and public life is not for the faint-hearted. If you want to go in politics, you must go in it, because you have such conviction, you have such commitment, and we will judge you, obviously, based on decisions and based on the work that you have done.
So the people that thought that you were told by President Edgar Lungu and your government to shut down Prantili are not correct?
Whatever the insinuations that would be around it, I think ultimately a decision was made by the Broadcasting Authority. And once the Broadcasting Authority made that decision, for me as minister, it becomes difficult to say, I'm just going to overrule you because I'm feeling very strongly about you. Because then how do I do that to another broadcasting station? Is that going to be the same signal? This is exactly the same case as when I was Minister of Transport, and we had the issue of the Zambian Airways then not paying airport statutory fees. I could have said, no, but this is a Zambian company. Let them just go on. I was advised professionally by airport management that no, it's not the only airline. There are other airlines, and they are meeting their dues. Now, if you isolate this one, how will you justify that? So ministers have to make tough decisions. And I'll tell you one thing, I am not afraid to make a tough decision, because that's what leadership is about. If you're not going to make tough decision, you're going to be wishy-washy. Of course, it doesn't mean that sometimes there's no room for discussions and compromise, but every case has its own merit, and ministers sometimes are advised professionally, but you have to ultimately make the decision and consider that if the professionals are telling me that no, people still have access, this is a statutory, it's by law, I have to consider that. Just the same thing with Broadcasting Authority statutory fees, that these are statutory fees, they are by law. Should I be the first to break the law? I have to say, you go and negotiate. For now, this is the course of action. And you know, in government, course of action is very well laid out. This will happen, then you can go and do this.
Thank you so much for talking to me on this edition of This Day.
This was wonderful, Jonah. You know, I've really enjoyed this. I think this is the best way for us to celebrate the Women's Month. We have to have honest discussions about our country.
Absolutely.
Thank you.